Hey, every now and then I like to update you listeners about coming on the show. You know that PR After Hours is going to be celebrating its first anniversary in January of 2021, and we'll have by then well over 100 episodes in the can, and that's pretty exciting for me. This was something that I started because I felt the need to connect and share what I knew about public relations, marketing, business, just based on my experiences. And I also wanted to connect with other people who had things to offer. And that's where you come in if you want to be a guest. We're always looking for people to guest on the show. And here's who we're looking for. I want to tell you who we're looking for, and I want to tell you a little bit about the process and how we book and all that stuff, because we have revamped our booking a little bit to make it smoother for everybody. And I'll go through that here. So bear with me. And if you're not interested in being on a guest, this might be interesting to you just to learn how the sausage is made. All right. So PR After Hours, based at prafterhours.com, by the way. If you haven't checked out the website, there's a complete archive of every episode, except for a few bonus episodes. I don't do a complete page individually for some of the bonus episodes that are like 2 or 3 minutes with a quick tip. I figure they speak for themselves and no need to make a whole page about it. But we're a weekly cocktail of PR and marketing tips, and we offer interviews with the pros, as you may know, and we have interviews that go into leadership, management, marketing, PR, production updates. We have those productivity hacks occasionally, and public appearances listings for yours truly, although with COVID, there will not be any, I dare say, until late 2021 at the earliest. Okay, so who are we looking for as guests? Well, as we mentioned previously, public relations professionals are always welcome, whether you're an agency person, a solopreneur, or you work for a company. We're always looking for PR people to share what they know, to give us the benefit of their experiences, to answer all my silly questions, and just have a conversation here in the virtual lounge. We're also looking for marketers of the same stripe, particularly content marketing people, particularly people who work on marketing digitally. But we'll talk to everybody who works on marketing, because we want our business owner friends and everybody to learn a little bit about what people in marketing do. Leadership people who talk about leadership, creativity, productivity, that's welcome as well. If you've got a book, a business book or a PR book, like Mark Witt, for example, we have Mark Witt on for 2 episodes because he wrote one of the greatest memoirs, not really a memoir, but one of the greatest books on PR I've read in quite some time. People like that. If you have a nonfiction business book like that, we had Nir Bashan, who wrote a great book on creativity. Natalie Dixon, PhD, she wrote a great book. There's so many authors we've had on. And what I like to do with those folks is just give me about a 30 days heads up, and with that, send me the book so I can read the book and be prepared to talk about it. I like hard copies, frankly. I've got a library. I like to fill it. But if you just want to send a PDF, we can swing that too. We'll get more into that in just a moment. But those are the types of folks we're looking for. We're probably not looking for people who are just looking to build their client base for financial advising, that kind of thing. I mean, I respect that profession, but it's really not who our audience is geared towards listening to right now. If you want to talk about how you market your business as a financial advisor, that would be interesting. Although I've worked with financial advisors as their PR consultant, and I know it's a tough row to hoe because you have so much government regulation. But anyway, we're probably not looking for that. I'm really not looking for insurance sales people. Nothing, again, no offense meant on anybody, but I'm just trying to gear this towards what my audience is gravitating towards. And after putting together almost 100 episodes, I have a good idea what the audience is most interested in. And so that one probably is not a biggie. I'm not saying I wouldn't have an insurance person on there. I would love to talk to somebody about errors and omission insurance, to be honest. Something I have to have as a PR professional, and you should too if you're a PR pro, particularly if you're not incorporated or you work for yourself. One of these jobs, something could sneak up on you and you'll be glad you had it. So those are typically who we're looking for and who we're not looking for. I'm really not looking for somebody who is a solopreneur, kind of outside typical business norms. I think if I had to explain it, it would be hard to explain, but I think you kind of know who I'm talking about. I think it's just there's some great people out there who are doing things their own way, but we want to make sure we present information that works with the widest swath of our audience. Okay, so enough about that. Okay, so how does it work? Well, let's say you're interested one way people find us is through publicists. If you have a publicist, have them get in touch with us. Another thing is to go to matchmaker.fm, where we're listed, and we get a lot of requests through Matchmaker. And on Matchmaker, it's really great because Matchmaker lists what we're looking for and kind of tells a little bit about the rules if you want to work with us or be on our show. I probably have more rules than most, and I'll tell you, we'll go through those rules and I'll explain why if you're interested. But it's not, I mean, I don't want anybody to think I'm, just a control freak or a jerk or anything, but there's just certain stringent things that I insist upon because I'm a former radio guy, a former TV guy, and I have expectations of putting out a quality product, and there's some things we need to work on. So I always ask people, it's listed on Matchmaker. I can't tell you everybody reads these things carefully, but I ask guests to use an external microphone. I'm talking to you right now with a external microphone. It's a professional quality microphone with a pop screen. Kind of helps with my plosives. I do that because the built-in mic in most computers is inadequate for a good listening experience. It's just, you've heard some interviews, and we've done a few. Great people, but they're kind of yelling into a laptop in a room, and it's kind of echoey, and it sounds like they're in a well, or it's not a very rich listening experience. And we have a meter that determines how long people listen to episodes, and it's there clear as day. I did a little study on this about 6 months ago. Guests who were using a external mic, people listen all the way through their episodes mostly. Guests who didn't, there was a huge drop off within 5 minutes because it just doesn't sound good. I have some other rules about that. I ask people, please don't eat or drink while we're doing, you can drink some water. I drink coffee usually during interviews, but I've had somebody eating like lunch and I've asked them, hey, can you lay off on that? Let's start over. That's just distracting, a little gross. So I ask about that. I also ask people to fill out a pre-show interview, which we used to do. I used to copy and paste it into an email and send that to people once we scheduled them. And I'm getting a little ahead of myself here because I've jumped over how we schedule, but just this is listed here on the Matchmaker thing, and I'll just say. So I asked that be filled out online within 5 days prior to your scheduled interview. That's just so I can research properly and ask decent questions and not, wing it too much. That's stressful for me. That can be stressful for you as a guest. And just back to how we did that, we used to, copy and paste that into an email. We used to have so many steps. In fact, I'll go through those in just a second. If you're sending, as I've said previously, books for review, if you want me to read the book and know what I'm talking about, I need it 30 days in advance. I have 2 podcasts, and right now I have 6 books to read in the next 24 days. And I also have a day job and a life. So it's, if you really want me to be up on stuff, I need at least 30 days. The farther out, the better. We record via Zoom or Skype, although I got to tell you, Zoom has made a believer out of me, and we do a lot more Zooming. Skype is just a little more difficult to use. Sound quality is not arguably better, and Zoom just makes it simple. I have a professional Zoom account, so we can go long, and we can, and I can take the audio and the visual. Typically, I don't use the visual for anything. I get those files, but until I decide to start cutting spots or specials using the visual, I'm not using it, so there's no need for hair or makeup. If I ever get to a point where I want to use it, I'll email you and ask, say, look, you appeared on my show back in 2020. I would love to steal like a snippet. Are you comfortable with that? It won't be the whole thing, that kind of thing. I'll ask. If you say no, I'll get it, because you might say, no, I didn't look good. You told me I didn't have to look good. So that's fine. Okay, so that's what I tell people about the show on Matchmaker. And I've also put a note here, and I'm interviewing myself here, as I am talking to you now on November 17th-ish, 2020. I tell people, basically the show right now is booked solid literally through the end of the year and into January 2021. So I say we will not conduct interviews in December. However, we will resume recording interviews in January. So feel free to connect. If you're a good fit for the show, we'll get you scheduled in. And then I mark through January because it's February now. January is pretty well booked up. And I've actually put a little sleep notice on the show just saying we're not looking for guests at the moment. I keep getting at least a couple a day, and I'm wary of scheduling people more than a couple or 3 months out. And my job situation is a little precarious right now. As far as time, and I want to make sure that I'm not getting people booked in only to have to change it in 3 months because something changed with me. But that's kind of where we are in Matchmaker. So let's say you get through Matchmaker or your publicist, and I say, okay, yeah, sounds like a good fit. You tell me about yourself, what you want to do. So I send you a link to Calendly, and on there's 4 different sessions you can do. One's a 15-minute meeting for my company that you don't want that. One's a 30-minute meeting for my company. You don't want that unless you want to hire me to be your PR guy. Then I have PR After Hours podcast recording session. It's a 30-minute block. And then I have a 60 or 45-minute block for Mysterious Goings On, my other podcast. Well, let's click on the PR After Hours podcast recording session. And when you do that, you get, I'm trying to find it. You get a little calendar and you get a little note here to select. I set the calendar where you can go all the way out for months now. You used to have it reserved for 60 days. Now it goes all the way out. But here is the big change that I want to make sure you knew about. If you're a publicist, please listen to this too. Just because of time constraints, and I'm a victim of my own success because both shows are inundated with guest requests now, and it's great. It's what I always wanted. Who knows? Maybe down the road we can actually monetize this thing. But I want to do a good job, and there's only so many hours in a week for me to do this, and so I've got to focus a little more. So now we're going to record only on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Central Time. So there's that little block. That's a good little block of time on those 3 days every week that we're doing this. I've had some people say, oh, hey, I travel. I can only do this at 3 a.m. your time. Let's do it. And I'm like, no, I'd love to, but probably not. It's nothing personal, but again, this is a more labor of love than anything else. And getting up at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. or even 5 a.m. To do an interview is just not ideal for me at this point. So we're going to stick to those days, the kind of the middle of the meatloaf there, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, 11 a.m. to 2 Central Time. Now, if you're just like, I can't do this and I really want to be on the show, if you give me enough notice, there's probably a way around that where we can find some other dates and times. I jealously guard my weekends. I have family time and I have time to work on some other pursuits. So I really don't like to do these on weekends, but occasionally I can. And I don't want to be so arrogant as to assume that, oh my God, you just have to be on our show. I mean, we're a growing show and we reach a nice audience, but we're not Joe Rogan. So, if you can't fit those in anytime soon, or, going out a few weeks or even a few months and finding a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, well, that's okay. But we'll talk if we have to, but I understand if it just doesn't fit your schedule to book in those 3 days and during that window of time. Also, you'll get the guest interview link, which I said previously you'd need to complete no less than 5 days prior to your interview. The link is real simple. It gives you all the information you need to know about appearing on the show before we even get to the questionnaire part. I mean, there's a link to the show website. There's the general information about the show. In fact, I'll read real quick that paragraph. PR After Hours began in 2020 and features PR, marketing, and management news, tips, and interviews. PR After Hours is a laid-back, quote, happy hour, unquote, vibe, as if you were chatting with a colleague after work. Keep it light, positive, and fun. Host Alex Greenwood is an award-winning writer, public relations consultant, speaker, and former journalist and radio talk show host. Most recording sessions last 20 minutes. I've already mentioned about using the audio version on Zoom. Can use Skype. We pride ourselves on offering a professional, well-produced show that sets it apart from other podcasts. To provide a better experience for listeners and guests, please note and follow these guidelines. As I mentioned previously, use a headset, external mic, or smartphone earbud mic, because the built-in mic in your computer usually stinks. It just does not provide a good listening experience. So again, you don't have to go buy a fancy external mic like I have. You can just use your smartphone earbud that has the mic built into that. That, believe it or not, is far better than just talking into the one on your computer. And I wish people would do that. Please unplug or silence your telephones. Be careful not to shuffle papers or desk items. People do that. They get nervous or they fidget. They type. Please try not to rock in creaky chairs, eat, play with pets, type on keyboards, as I said, talk to children during the interview. There's just all this stuff. And all these things have happened, by the way. It's just like, really? You're talking to a kid during it? This is an interview. Come on. I know life happens, but I mean, I've had people just in the middle of a thought go, hey, get out of the kitchen. And I was like, oh, okay. Anyway, all interviews become the property of AGPR. We reserve the right to use excerpts of interviews for promotional purposes in perpetuity. We're going to do some fast cuts with snippets of interviews down the road. We're going to hire a producer to put those together for us and use that. I also provide the link to where to mail a book, or the address. Then I ask your contact info. Very simple. I ask you to provide links to websites, social media, and other links you wish to share on our show notes page. I mean, if you want it shared with your interview, with your episode, provide it here. I'm not going to go hunt it down. Or my producing assistant, who I have sometimes, Mary, she's not going to go hunt it down either. Okay, just asking this right up front. Well, I asked for 3 topics, like a sentence or 2, about each that you want to talk about. So I would rank those if I were you. Rank them. I will. If I don't find one of them all that interesting, I'll probably skip it. But typically, if there's time, we'll try to get to all 3. But you might rank them in the order you want to speak about them. And again, we're trying to cut these at a 20-minute level, so keep that in mind. And then list and describe the services you offer. Also be sure to showcase a premium service or offer for listeners. And at the very least, the last thing, simple, I ask you to submit a 100-word or so introduction for me to read on the show. I love to research people and write my own intros, and I've done that most of the time, but it's getting to a point now where it'd just be a lot simpler for all involved for you to tell me what you want me to introduce you as, and then I can embellish a little bit and we can learn more about you during the interview. So that's kind of the basics. There's more information on prafterhours.com. I just wanted to spend a few minutes to tell you about that, how we've streamlined this to it's more of an online process for scheduling. This saves us all emails. You can basically contact me through matchmaker.fm. That's the best way to do that. Publicists, tell your publicist to do that if you're not the one who does this, and find me there and just look for PR After Hours there and contact me through there. And then I will look at that information and decide if it's a good fit. And then I will send you a link to Calendly. Once you do that, you pick a date and time that works. You will get the Zoom login information. I will get it put on my calendar. You'll also have included in there the link to the pre-show interview. It's all done there. It's boop, boop, boop. And it's all set. It used to be several emails back and forth, and it just became kind of a mess for everybody, and people would forget and things would get lost. The other thing I'd say is, again, these are like I said, these are about 20 minutes. Let's try and keep it there. I like to keep it moving. I just like to have a conversation. I don't do pre-interviews in the sense of getting on the phone with you ahead of the interview and talking about the interview. I don't really understand that practice. I understand people on TV do it. I used to be in TV, and some radio shows do that, but to me, it just kills the spontaneity of the discussion. I don't really want to get on a 15-minute Zoom call with you 2 weeks ahead of your interview to talk about what we're going to talk about. And I don't mean that snooty or anything. I just want it to be a fresh, fun conversation. So please keep that in mind. I just don't have the time to do a pre-interview and an interview. I might as well just record the pre-interview that we're doing on Zoom or something, So please understand that. That's not me trying to be a jerk. It's just managing time and having a fresh interview. I also don't really like to supply questions ahead of time. If you give me a topic, I'll go from that topic and I'll ask you questions about it. And I think that if you're a listener of the show, that you'll know that works pretty well. Okay, have I covered everything? So Calendly, matchmaker.fm is where you can go to find links to contact me on my show, PR After Hours, or Mysterious Goings On if you're into writing, creativity, the arts, that kind of stuff. Or you can reach me via email, alex@alexgpr.com. That's alex@alexgpr.com. Just put in the subject header, PR After Hours guest request, and we can go from there. We're really blessed. We've had great listenership. We've had a lot of interest, especially lately, in getting guests, and it's fun, and I love it. We're just having to do a few things to streamline the process so that I'm not spending so much of my time doing administrative stuff, and it makes it easier for you as guests and your publicist, if there is one, to facilitate this kind of stuff, and it just makes it a lot smoother for everybody involved. So again, prafterhours.com for more information, matchmaker.fm if you would like to look into being a guest. And of course, follow us on PR. Follow us on Twitter at OursPR. And let me think, is there anything else I should mention? We've talked about pre-interviews, questions. I think we're there. But again, if you want to send merch or books or things like that, a month ahead of time is a good idea. particularly books. Can be sent later. I've had some guests that I've had on send me some nice merch, a hat or something. Happy to do that and wear a hat, or I got a nice couple of travel mugs out of the deal, but not required. And I guess the last final thing I will mention to you is, of course, if you want to support the show, and that is something that I could definitely use some help. I've got a few people who are helping out on one of my other shows, but if you want to support the show by sponsoring us, there's information at Anchor FM on that. In the show notes, there should be a link. We've got a current sponsor, which is Anchor, and that's why you hear their spots on just about every episode. But listener support, you can you can do a monthly recurring donation, and it's just really simple to do. You can just go down to the links, and you can find out more about that. And anyway, I think that's about it. I appreciate you listening. I know it was a little bit of a slog to get through, but I wanted to lay it all out there for you. And that way you don't have to read anything. You could just listen. How about that? Okay. Well, anyway, it's always my pleasure to have you listening. I'm honored by it, and I'm excited about our success. And I welcome you twice a week to the Virtual Lounge. Tuesdays is usually interview day, and Thursday is usually a tip from me. And it's usually a really short episode, unlike this one. All righty then. Until next time, I'm Alex Greenwood, and you've been listening to PR After Hours.